News now. Marlon Joseph denied bond for the murders of a West Palm Beach mother and her 11-year-old daughter.
Well, we are outside of the home where this mother and her little girl were shot to death. You can see the memorial still.
And the search intensifying tonight for this man who police say killed a West Palm Beach mother and daughter.
Kalata Crowell's great uncle tells me he's extremely relieved that Marlon Joseph will finally face justice.
Detectives say he shot and killed him a week ago. Tonight, new information on what happened last Thursday, according to detectives.
County judge and jury have sentenced someone to death. Marlon Joseph will be heading to death row.
May God have mercy on your soul. This court is now in recess.
Background: Marlon Joseph was indicted for 2 counts of first-degree slaying with an arm related to the endings of Kalata Crowell and her 11-year-old daughter Kira Inglett on December 28, 2017. The incident occurred at a home in West Palm Beach with Joseph's mother, girlfriend, daughter Kira, and 3 brothers. Joseph's 8-year-old daughter Kamari Canty and goddaughter Jeshima Tarver were also present at the time. Earlier in the day, an incident occurred between Kira and Kamari, and Joseph yelled to Denson about Kira's behavior. Later, Joseph helped bring in groceries and read his Bible in the living room. When Denson returned home, she had a conversation with Joseph about a text message he received from Crowell, who was still in her room. Joseph started using expletives in reference to Kamari's mother, which Denson told him to calm down. Jeshima heard arguing between Joseph and Crowell, and after hearing 3 loud bangs, Crowell and Kira were shot. Jeshima and Kamari went into Kira's room and called 911 using Joseph's phone. Paris heard gunshots while sitting on the front porch, and Joseph came outside after Kira.
News now. Marlon Joseph denied bond for the murders of a West Palm Beach mother and her 11-year-old daughter.
Will be sentenced to death. They say they support this sentence, but they know it will not replace what they've lost.
A dog and shooting her 5 times, I believe it was 3 shots in the head. Those are gruesome.
Well, we are outside of the home where this mother and her little girl were shot to death. You can see the memorial still.
A Palm Beach County judge has handed down the death sentence for a convicted murderer.
The jury found Joseph guilty on both counts, determining that the aggravated factors outweighed the mitigating circumstances. The aggravating factors included Joseph's previous felony conviction, previous conviction for other crimes involving violence, the slaying being especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, and the slaying being committed in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner. The trial court found no mitigating circumstances for Joseph, and he was sentenced to ending. The trial court found 4 aggravating factors for both counts: Joseph's previous felony conviction, previous convictions for other crimes, the slaying being especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, and the slaying being committed in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner. The trial court also found an additional aggravator for the charge related to Kira, the victim being less than 12 years of age. The trial court considered and found as proven as one of the 3 statutory mitigators Joseph's family background, his work ethic, his caring nature, his family support, his devout Christian beliefs, his delusional disorder, and his low IQ.
West Palm Beach police tell me that they tracked Joseph down using investigative work.
I also want justice for Kalata and Kara. You know, both of them meant the world to me, you know.
Joseph was convicted several months ago, but his sentencing was delayed due to the pandemic.
Posting a reward up to $5,000 for the arrest of Marlon Joseph. We'd like to get that out to the media and to the community.
That $5,000 is just for the arrest of Marlon Joseph.
And the victim's girlfriend want him to do the right thing and surrender.
Court's rulings on Joseph's appeals. Joseph, a man accused of 2 slayings, has appealed against the trial court's denial of his motion to exclude testimony from the state's arms expert Omar Felix. Joseph argues that the court erroneously denied his motion to exclude Felix due to an alleged discovery violation. The trial court conducted a Richardson inquiry and its actions were proper, so the court did not abuse its discretion in denying Joseph's motion to exclude. On February 13, 2020, the state filed a supplemental witness list naming Omar Felix as an expert witness and an arms report as supplemental discovery. The report concluded that 9mm Luger caliber Winchester cartridge cases had been submitted to Felix for forensic analysis. Joseph filed a motion to exclude Felix from testifying because of the state's discovery violation and resulting prejudice to him.
County judge and jury have sentenced someone to death. Marlon Joseph will be heading to death row.
In combination with each other, more than sufficient to justify a sentence of death as to each count of first-degree murder. Marlon Maurice Joseph shall be delivered into the custody of the Florida Department of Corrections at the Florida State Prison. May God have mercy on your soul. This court is now in recess.
Death penalty process could take even longer if there are appeals. It could be decades before an execution.
The trial court ruled that the state's discovery violation did not procedurally prejudice Joseph. Joseph argued that the court erred in allowing the state to improperly impeach its own witness at trial. But the court found that the state did lay proper predicate and overruled the objection. The court ruled in favor of Joseph, stating that the trial court did not improperly impeach Denson for testifying inconsistently with her in-court testimony. Joseph argued that the trial court erroneously admitted Detective Greelman's testimony regarding out-of-court identifications made by Cordarius and Paris that identified Joseph as the slayer. However, the court found that these identifications were not hearsay and were admissible as statements of identifications under Sections 90.8012C, Florida Statutes 2017. The court also noted that the question of whether a statement is hearsay is a matter of law and is subject to de novo review on appeal. The court ruled in favor of Joseph, stating that the trial court did not improperly impeach Denson for testifying inconsistently with her in-court testimony.
And the search intensifying tonight for this man who police say killed a West Palm Beach mother and daughter.
I also love them too. Marlon, if you're watching, son, just please turn yourself in.
Robin Denson says that she loves her son, but she wants him to face justice. She was there the night the shots rang out.
Now, yesterday, Joseph was arrested out at his cousin's apartment in Lake Worth.
Now, we requested more information from West Palm Beach Police, but they tell us that their investigation is still ongoing.
Joseph argued that the trial court erroneously admitted Jashima Tarver's testimony about Joseph yelling about Kira 2 days ago, referring to prior incident on December 23, 2017, which was relevant to proving motive. The court denied relief on this claim. Joseph also argued that the trial court erred in denying his motion to dismiss charges, which alleged constitutional violations occurred while Joseph received treatment at Treasure Coast Forensic Treatment Center. The court did not abuse its discretion in denying motions to interview jurors based on juror bias or misconduct. Aggravators and prosecutorial comments. The HAC aggravator applies to slayings that are both conscienceless or pitiless and unnecessarily torturous to the victim. In this case, the trial court found that Kalada Crowell was alive after being shot multiple times as she was heard begging for help and for someone to call 911. The medical examiner testified that at least one of the shots to the head was fatal and would have rendered her unconscious immediately. The final shot was delivered when the defendant realized she was not slayed, demonstrating that the act of the final shot was conscienceless and pitiless. The trial court found competent, substantial evidence supporting the trial court's finding regarding Crowell, who sustained several gunshot wounds to different parts of her body. The fatal gunshot wound to Crowell's forehead was fatal, breaking her skull and destroying her brain. The medical examiner testified that Crowell was alive after being shot multiple times and received her fatal gunshot wound last. The evidence also indicated that Crowell endured physical pain, emotional strain, fear, and terror before being slayed. The medical examiner also found that the gunshot wound on the back of Crowell's right hand was indicative of a defensive wound. The trial court found competent substantial evidence supporting the HAC aggravator as to Kira, who was in her home when the defendant shot her mother multiple times. The evidence demonstrated that she was inside the home at the time Crowell was shot, and it can be reasonably inferred that she saw Joseph slaying her mother or heard the gunshots directed at her.
And cuffed him at a Lantana apartment complex.
Joseph, he went on the run after police say he killed Kalata Crowell and her.
Kalata Crowell's great uncle tells me he's extremely relieved that Marlon Joseph will finally face justice.
Detectives say he shot and killed him a week ago. Tonight, new information on what happened last Thursday, according to detectives.
Joseph didn't like Kyra's attitude, and that's when the violence escalated, or the arguments, escalated into violence.
Joseph challenges a number of prosecutorial comments made during the penalty phase closing argument and argues that the trial court erred in denying his motions for mistrial directed at those comments. The trial court did not abuse its discretion in denying Joseph's motion for mistrial directed at this comment. The state's comment that Joseph did not care about jail was made in the context of mitigating circumstances, such as Joseph's capacity to appreciate the criminality of his conduct or conform his conduct to the requirements of law. Joseph argues that he was deprived of a fair trial because the jury acted out of emotion, misapprehension, or outright refusal to follow the law or the trial court's instruction in the penalty phase of the trial. The trial court agreed with the state that there is no factual basis to support Joseph's claim. You have not only forfeited your right to live among us, but under the law of the state of Florida, you have forfeited your right to live at all, Judge Cheryl Caracuzo said after imposing the sentence in Palm Beach County Circuit Court. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.